There's a renewed push to crack down on fentanyl, meth, marijuana, and other drugs from making their way into our area and the southeast as a whole. Atlanta Bureau Chief Archit Chaudhry talks to the Department of Agriculture on how they're cracking down on drug smuggling through produce.
The Department of Agriculture's Commissioner, Tyler Harper, reinstated a law enforcement division within the Department of Agriculture in March of 2023. He says it's important for them to have their own law enforcement within the department. That way they can track for drugs, things like opioid and fentanyl, as produce makes its way into the state of Georgia, and track drugs before they're put out in market.
It's been known that there's an increase in smuggling methamphetamine and fentanyl and high-grade marijuana across the border into our state, and that's what we're trying to combat.
An unusual way to traffic drugs through produce at a supermarket. That's what agents with the Drug Enforcement Administration and the Georgia Department of Agriculture busted recently in Atlanta.
It was packed in celery, and you know that is a twofold concern for us at the Department of Agriculture. Not only is it the illegal drugs that come into our state and our community, but also the contamination of food supply. And you know, it's our job to keep that food supply safe, and finding those drugs that are packed in agriculture, packed in food is a great concern.
Investigators confiscated more than 1,000 kilograms of meth of celery at an Atlanta farmers market valued at $3 million.
We also had a case down in Pierce County, Georgia, that resulted in seizure of over $24 million of marijuana that was being manufactured by Chinese nationals.
Investigators, along with the district attorney's office, say drugs were smuggled across the border from Mexico, and then they worked with state partners and local agencies to crack down on traffickers.
We don't care if you're from Willacoochee, Georgia to Tijuana, Mexico. If you utilize agriculture to bring into this state and to our communities any type of illicit drugs, we're going to be looking for you.
The Department of Agriculture says it is a statewide problem and continues to exist because it boils down to organized crime, money, and a demand for drugs. Reporting in Atlanta, Archit Chaudhry, Atlanta Bureau Chief.
We're back here with our panel, and I was just talking to Colleen Robertson, the paramedic from Chatham County. You said the question would be, how many times is the same person getting Narcan out there, and should that continue? And you had an interesting point about that.
We do see a lot of the same people consistently, but everybody's rock bottom is different. You don't know what people are going through. You don't know at what point it's going to be like, this is enough for me. So I don't think giving up on people is something that should happen personally.
Right. And Corporal Vera, you've been dealing with that in your program specifically to try to get these people back on the right track before they hit rock bottom.
Absolutely. And part of the barrier with police is people think that they're going to get in trouble. But I try to remind everybody in the community about Georgia's medical amnesty law that protects people who are having a medical emergency or an overdose experience that needs help, and they call for EMS or for the police to come and assist. They're not going to be held criminally responsible for anything that's present in the immediate scene of a medical emergency, whether it's the individual seeking help for themselves or a bystander seeking help for the person who's needing medical.
Because that is the hard part, is what's criminal versus what's a medical emergency. And really that rock bottom we talked about is where you guys step in many times. You've got somebody on your staff who hit that rock bottom and now is stepping forward.
I actually have two amazing young ladies on my staff that are certified peer support specialists, which means that they have been in long-term recovery for over 2 years. They have taken the courses to learn how to advocate and help reach out and provide resources to other people who are suffering from substance use disorders.
Ms. Hewitt, from a legislative perspective, from that Congress perspective, what would you like to see done for the people themselves, some of these addicts, and what needs to be done?
I think some of the most important activities we could do is make sure that all of our citizens have health care insurance, and that would be expanding Medicaid in this state and also making sure that the 14% of people that don't have health care insurance in this state have it, so that they can get treatment if they are addicts, or they can get access to safe, effective drugs that are prescribed by doctors.
And that is the difficult process in getting it through Congress and getting both sides to agree on something like that. for you, of course, Congressman.
Well, it is, and I might mention that we have legislation now that is in the Senate. It's called the Support Act that would require Medicaid to cover medication and administer or medication-assisted treatment, and that's very important. It's in the Senate now, and I would call on Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff to pass that legislation. It has passed the House. That will help us.
Well, you guys are doing such a great job. I have to laugh because I said, well, what about Narcan? And immediately you two pulled out the fact that you have Narcan at the ready. That is really the most important thing, I guess, for all of you, but for what you see, for citizens to jump involved. I know you've been involved in that, Congressman. For you two to have citizens with Narcan and training would be great.
Yes, training is very important on how to use it, when you to recognize an overdose. That training is absolutely important.
Yeah, and you've had training sessions that you've led self.
Yes, we have, and it is important. I carry it with me everywhere, and I have it in my backpack. Thank God I've never had to use it, and I hope I don't have to, but we have it in case we did.
And Corporal, you guys have classes or have the ability if people want Narcan and want to learn how to use it.
Absolutely. The opioid overdoses are reversible with somebody prepared on scene to help save somebody's life. So even a citizen can be out there and be a hero and a lifesaver. You don't have to have police or EMS on scene to take care of somebody's life.
And you can get it without a prescription.
Yes, sir.
Which is even better. And you've seen some of those people who have now turned their lives around after getting dosed.
We have. And one of the I want to touch on real quick is that it's not just the education of how to give it, it's the willingness. You have to be willing to help someone out. But we've gotten a few people into treatment facilities or gotten them resources, and that's helped them really turn their lives around.
That's the hardest part, is where's the line in there, I guess, for everybody concerned, especially you talked about the fact you don't want to necessarily arrest somebody for that when they can try to get help somewhere, and that's the goal of what all of you are doing right now, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for being part of this panel, for being part of this discussion. It's an incredibly important thing for all of you. You know, quickly, what do you think is the thing you'd want to tell people about Narcan specifically or fentanyl specifically?
It's very important to realize that after you administer Narcan, you have about a 2 to 4 hour window, because you need to have somebody that is watching you, preferably at the ER, because those overdose effects can come back. They can come back, and then you can be right into the same boat you were in before. So if Narcan is administered, it's very important that somebody is watching you.
Okay. Thank you all so much again. That'll do it for now. Tune in tomorrow night at 8 o'clock right here on WSAV News 3. Along with our corporate partner, Nexstar Media Group, we get even deeper into that fight against opioids and fentanyl. And online, we've got a list of websites with more information and sources, including all of their websites for what they can do. Thank you so much for joining us.